Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moonride. This is Dave Johnson with Moonride, and I'm here interviewing Kim from Intuitiview. Right, Kim and I got introduced fairly recently. As you mentioned, I think because you and I don't work with props, we just see what we see, right? Um,
That's right.
yeah,
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 exactly.
great. And
And yeah, I mean, I'd had several people tell me about you
mm,
because you don't use cards, and there are others that don't use cards, but it's kind of unusual. It's
it
not,
is.
you don't see it as much. And so they would always say, you should check him out because he does what you do. So
Well,
basically.
I'm glad we were connected through our mutual client. Um, now, I really am interested in when you made the decision to go public with your work.
Well, it was probably kind of like you and kind of a lot of other people who started around during the Trump years,
Yeah.
because I got what I would consider kind of the closest thing to a calling, I guess, that I've ever gotten, because I just kept getting this repeated message that Trump would be gone and the country would survive. And that's how it came. That's how it kept coming. And then I get a lot of things, especially for myself, when I'm reading for myself, for my family, I get a lot of movie and television references because I have a big catalog in my head. So they can pick and choose. And I kept getting the end of King Kong. And so that's what I kept seeing, was when he falls from the tower, and he's, fighting and stuff. So I knew that it told me a lot about what was going to happen, because it told me that he would go down fighting and angry, that the world would be watching this, that it would be a big fall, that it was kind of the end of an era, and that it was be the beginning of the ending of something. So it told me a lot, and that's I just kept getting the message, and I said, well, to my guides, I'll do this, but you got to have my back, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I just went on and did the first few videos, and I started to get an audience pretty quickly. And I think a lot of people were very fearful at the time, and I think it was well timed, because I think that Spirit was contacting a lot of us because there was so much anxiety, and we didn't know how bad it would get, right? We knew that something was coming, but we weren't quite sure. So I just said, I'll keep giving you these small predictions along the way, so that this big prediction of him going is the truth, is real. And that's really how it started, and why I started it. So.
Wow, we totally synced up on that one.
Yeah.
I got exactly the same message, I presume, pretty close to the same time. And I have to say, I found that a lot of people were just calmed, right?
Yes.
It wasn't even that I was 100% accurate. They were just like, oh, it's going to be okay, right?
Right.
Well,
And don't you think, Dave, that part of it too was building these communities? Because you find that these people are so like-minded. I think that was part of it as well, that we couldn't really see at the beginning, but all of these lovely communities have built, with each reader, and then they're kind of melding together to become a bigger kind of, community for everybody. And I'm getting chills. I always get chills when I was like, yeah, that's right. You know, even now just talking about it, but that was, I think, a bigger picture that I think Spirit could see, that we maybe weren't quite thinking that along those lines yet, but now you can really see that taking shape.
Now, this is a totally impromptu question, but I really want to ask, insofar as you feel that, I also feel like we're all being contacted to take this to the next stage. How do you feel about that?
I think that's true. I mean, I think it's true in a couple of ways, because on the micro level, just the small level with me, I feel like I've been called to kind of do teaching, teach other people how to do this. And I felt like one of my kind of callings in this was to demystify this a little bit, because I think people have an idea of how to do this. They kind of think of it as like it's a gift you have to be, have bestowed upon you, but it really is something you can learn. It's a type of tuning in a type of concentration you can learn. And so, yeah, I think there's that. And then I also think that, kind of on the macro level, there's a shift going on. There's this big kind of shift in consciousness going on that really is going to change and save really the world. Because I think that we need to save the environment, and we need to help each other, right now. And I think that's part of what's going on like a big macro level. So
Absolutely agree. I so agree with you. I'd so agree with you so much that I'd love you to say a little bit more about the shift and how like you perceive it.
Well, it's kind of the closest thing I think to describing it as the way I kind of see it is Eckhart Tolle, who's I say Tolle, some people say Tolle.
I think you're right.
He is, yeah, he talks about the new earth. And he talks about a shift in consciousness where we all of a sudden remember kind of, oh, we're spirits also. There's something else to us, not just this, this 3D, version. There's something more, and we're all connected. That's another big thing, because, and I think if anything did that recently to show us that is the virus. I mean, how fast did that move, and how quickly it came into the earth and was, literally just wrapped around the earth with all of us. That's how connected we are, and how closely connected we are on a physical level, but then spiritually even more so.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he talks about. And I think that's the closest thing to what I think it is. Dolores Cannon talked about it actually being like two worlds. One world kind of going on and the other one kind of not. And you can also kind of see that as well as there is a portion of us kind of moving forward, and a portion of us stuck, not willing to move, not willing to budge. They don't want anything to change, and they're angry about it. Because you can kind of see that as well, that splitting of the new earth kind of moving on, and this old earth kind of remaining in this kind of misery in a way, because I think a lot of angry people and ugliness and stuff. And I think it's just like there. And I personally feel like, one by one, they'll come along, but they'll do it in their own time. They have their free will, and they have to do it in their own time, in their own, when they're ready. They're not ready yet.
Beautifully said. I can't agree with you more. One thing that I really found very impressive about your work is that you do a lot of work where you don't take money, or you have people send in money and that money goes to a charity, and then you ask people about the charity. I also think when you do charge people, it's very reasonably priced. Could you tell us more about why you do that?
Well, the channel, I feel like the channel is ours. I don't feel like it's just mine. So I feel like it's ours. So any money that comes to the channel, whether it's when I do my lives, or when, or just the money from YouTube, that goes to charity. And I just feel like there's a couple reasons. One is that I feel like this is our community. So I feel like I want to do something for us, but also I feel like there are a lot of people that are struggling financially, and we have this huge divide in our country right now with and all over the world, this kind of divide with the very rich and people struggling, the working poor basically. And I feel like there's a lot of people that really would love to give money to charity, but they don't have it to give. So I always tell people, if you're a member of this community, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You're giving to charity, because your subscription helps to build the money, and the money goes to charity. So you're part of that. So, and I think it kind of eases people's mind, and they send me, this is my favorite charity, or this is where I'd love the money to go this month. And I just take that, and that's where it goes. So.
Mm-hmm. When I first started this work, I was very nervous about taking money. It was kind of my biggest deal, my biggest problem with it. And I did a meditation. I kind of asked the universe, like, is it okay to take money for this? I mean, others did it for free. Is this okay? And I kind of got 3 messages. One, don't take that money and invest it in something terrible like a cigarette company. Number 2, be reasonable what you charge. And number 3, give back. you should give 10% of it back.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's important to do it. You know, it's kind of like if we were shaman 100 years ago, somebody would pay us in a chicken, you know, they would pay us in,
Right.
and, you know, so, but that's not really, you know, practical in the present world. So I do think it's important for people to understand, you know, mixing money and spirituality, as long as you're not greedy, it's possible. You have to be really keep yourself in check. Right.
I think that's right. I mean, because I had the same, I still have, you know, hangups about charging, but I also feel like spirit knows, and I've gotten this in so many personal readings with people. Spirit knows we have to live. We have to, you know, we have to pay for food, and we have to put a roof over our head, and we have to do certain things to live in this material world. They know that, and so they're never begrudging, you know, that you have to earn a living. They understand that, and if you want to devote all your time to this, you're going to have to make money doing it, because you got to live.
Yeah.
But you're right, it doesn't have to be exorbitant. You don't have to become rich off of it. You don't have, you know, these are all personal decisions that people have to make. For me, I just feel like I'm going to charge what I have to, and that's really it. And then everything else, like we said, kind of goes to charity. And like you said, you give a portion to charity, and I think that's what you do. You know, if you're a responsible spiritual worker, you know, you don't gouge people or try not to.
Right. Right. Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Yeah.
noticed in one of your videos, you were talking about how you felt protected. Do you still feel we're being protected?
I do. I do. I actually feel like, and I've gotten the message before, that there's the most kind of spirit energy here and being kind of directed here since World War II. We're being kind of, and also it's coming through us as well. So we're part of the protectors, you know, we're part of that. But I do feel like we are definitely being guided and protected. And you can also see it even in some of these recent kind of shooting attempts. They've kind of figured out and kind of, you know, got to the shooters, the people that had guns, and you know, dismantled their plans. Things like that, I think you're going to start seeing more of. And there will be things that slip through the cracks, obviously, because this is how this stuff is right now. But you're going to see more of that, I think. Do you feel like that is the case? Because I feel like there is a protection happening here. As we're trying to move forward. I just feel like it's gonna, we're gonna have that kind of protection. It's gonna keep going. Do you get that too?
Absolutely. And I feel like, I truly do feel like there is a battle going on, that there's this protection and that there's this stuff that sneaks in.
Yeah.
You know, I hesitate to call things good and evil, because I think it's all kind of meant to be. Even this dark force is something that we're supposed to confront. But I'll tell you, even recently, I experienced a pretty severe psychic attack, and I really had to, you know, I felt like something was happening. I was really downloading a lot of material. It was very magical. And in the middle of it, something changed. And I just felt dreadful for days, and, you know, ear infection. Finally, I'm like, what was really going on there? And, you know, like you, I'm teaching, I have these great students. So I'm teaching them to channel. And when they're talking to their guide, I'm like, by the way, I just get a little questions for myself. And they're like, oh yeah. And they really told me, you know, you got to call on your positive forces. I'm reading a lot about Christ, and I want to mention that, you know, I do not care what way you come to the spirituality. It's all great. But a lot of the Christ and Mary energy is coming to me right now. And so I really just asked them to protect me. I think this is very much a process. I do think that we are protected, and I was protected, but sometimes something sneaks in, and you just got to go to your protection sources and reinstigate them. So, yeah.
I think you're right. You know, and that's so interesting, because I think that sometimes spiritual, when you do this every day, and when you're part of this whatever you want to call it, this movement or whatever of spirituality, you can let your guard down sometimes, because you just think, whether it's with a person, somebody that maybe comes into your life, you just kind of want to think, everybody's good and everybody, and sometimes you let your guard down. And I think sometimes we do that even working with things outside of this realm. We can let our guard down, even if even if we have good intentions and everything, we can still, like you said, things can kind of sneak through, and we just have to be really vigilant. And I think you're right. I think there's kind of some insidious energies going on in the especially in the United States, and probably, I mean, I'm sure around the world, but you can feel this, that there is kind of a shifting and balancing going on that is happening. And I think it's a good reminder that experience is a good reminder to all of us in the spiritual community to really be vigilant in keeping that armor, that spiritual armor up.
And I have to say, there's like times you got to go clean out, go sit in nature, take a bath, whatever works for you. There's got to be a time where you're not doing this work, so that you can just let yourself be protected. That I feel is very, very important. And nature always works for me. I don't care where I am, even if it's my backyard. It just always.
Yeah, absolutely. In nature and animals, if you have animals, because I always go to my I have my little dog Lucy. She's not with me right now, but she if anything like that reminds you to be in the moment and reminds you kind of what you're connected to, I think is always a good way to go.
Yeah, excellent. So what's the energy like in the UK? How does it feel there?
It's good. It's very different than the United States in a lot of ways. Even though we're so similar and we're very connected, it's very different. The UK has this very interesting mode that I always feel they go into when there's a crisis. And it's very much that World War II kind of, we're going to beat this, we're going to do this. And it's a very much a coming together kind of energy. We have that in certain pockets in the United States right now, but you do feel this kind of divide, and it will make it more difficult for us, to not be able to come together as a country. It's almost like a reflex for them when there's some kind of crisis. And they do have like their kind of little pockets of people that are like in the United States, where they're kind of like not with the program basically, but it's very small. And you kind of feel this coming together and this kind of stiff upper lip, this determination that sets in. And I do think it comes from the 40s to the 70s. They were rebuilding from the war. That's how long it took. So it was a big deal when the war happened. And so to me, it's that energy of like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this together. There's also an epiphany I had while I was here, Dave. So it's really interesting that you're asking about the UK, because I was, and maybe I'm slow on the uptake, but I realized here for the first time that we're in the United States, we're not going to have a completely compassionate nation until we have universal health care. The difference in kindness and compassion here is huge. And so much of it has to do with their healthcare system. The idea that we attach it to, and I don't want to get political, but it was just an epiphany that I had, because the way that we attach it to our jobs and the way that it's so, it's cruel that you can work your whole life for stuff and get sick once when you're older and you lose everything. It's a very cruel system we have right now, very based in money. And until we kind of get out of that and just really care about people, because I've been watching the NHS system here, and it's so kind and compassionate and loving, and it just has a completely different feel. in the nation when it comes to like the coronavirus. And so I just kind of had that epiphany when I was here. I'm like, we really will never get to that place we all want to get to until that happens. So hopefully it will. I really hope that this virus kind of pushes us to realize we all need to take care of each other. It is a must. But so those are the things I've noticed that are different, and I just think they're doing good. They're doing good.
Great. Yeah, I 100% agree with you, especially on the whole COVID crisis. Every day we have to ask ourselves the question, what should I do? Should I go to the party or not go to the party? And every single day was just sit here and go, well, there's an older person coming to that party. I don't want to be responsible for, so no.
Right.
And it just
Right.
have to every single moment of every day. Should I put the mask on? Not. Do I care about my neighbor or do I not? And I think
Right.
that really is the question that COVID has presented to us. You don't have to wear a mask, maybe, but now it's up to you, right? And that's when you meet your maker, if you will, that's what you're going to have to answer. Did you
That
mask up for your neighbor?
that is I've not ever looked at it that way before, Dave, about how every day individually we're being, I mean, it's when you say it like that, it's like, of course that's what's happening, but I've never thought of it that way, where it's kind of like every single day you're being asked, do you care? Do you care? And every day you have to answer that question. Even us who are like, I'm so tired of wearing a mask and I don't, but you know what the responsible thing is to do. And you're right. If you care, you'll just throw it on and you'll just not take the chance, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're also seeing a lot of people that for whatever reason, whatever's happened in their life, they don't care. They don't care right now. I think they will eventually. I think some things are happening in a way that are forcing people to
Yes.
kind of, it's coming to them whether they like it or not. So
Sure.
I think but that is a great way to look at it. I think
Yeah.
that's really,
I can tell
yeah.
you, just as this was beginning, I happened to be in an airport and I noticed all of the Asians had their masks on. And I was like laughing to myself. I'm like, American person's never going to do that. Because first of all, it means somebody's telling you what to do and you're following orders. Second of all, now I'm
Right.
marking myself as somebody who's diseased, and then Americans wouldn't do that. I was just like, this is like I just in my science fiction fantasy. What if? And sure enough, all of the science fiction fantasy, it really became this almost a morality play around
Right.
these issues. And there are some people who are not able to take the vaccine because of their own immune system. We got
Right.
respect that. I understand why people don't trust the government, but at the same time, I don't distrust all of the doctors in the United States of America. I just don't think that they're applicable.
Right.
That's just not believable to me. So I
Right.
think
And I think, too, reminding people that they've been working on this vaccine long before Trump and all the political stuff, that they've been working on this, kind of knowing this at some point an airborne something would come along. They've been working on this. So it's not like they did it in a year. They've been working on this for umpteen years, this vaccine. So you can have faith in I think science, but yeah, you have to do what's right for you personally. And I know there are people with compromised immune systems. And I don't know about you, Dave, but just recently I got in a private reading actually that there were going to be in the next year or so more varieties coming out, so that we would be able to vaccinate little kids, and kind of almost like a kinder, gentler vaccines for the body. They'd be just more not as hard to take, so they'd be kind of more sensitive in a way. So have you gotten anything like that? Because I just got it in a private reading.
I'm how interesting, because I just as I close my cards on the table, I see an array of cards, which indicates to me, yeah, maybe this will be vaccines suited to different people. It's like cards on
Right.
right. So as I didn't think about it till now.
Yeah, because I just happened to get it in a private reading of, it was a couple that were very compromised, and then their kids also, they were wanting to get them, they also had issues. And so it just came in that there was going to be just more variety, and that eventually we would be having, and to me it felt fast though, it felt like in the next year or so. So we'll see, but that's what I got. So hopefully people out there that are worried about that, just hang in there, wear your mask and hang in there. So
now, here's an interesting and totally impromptu question too. Do you have, like, when you're right, do you have like a feeling that lets you know this is accurate?
well, usually if I'm explaining something, or if I feel like I'm getting something very, specific that I need to explain in a certain way, I'll wait for chills. That's usually my sign for, like, that's right, you're explaining this right, keep going.
Yeah.
And I get that in private readings, and so you'll hear me say on my channel, I'm getting chills on that, or I'm getting chills with that. And that just means that they're just basically putting a period at the end of the sentence for me, being like, that's right. And that's usually my go-to. But as you know, sometimes the information can be vague, and so you have to kind of use your own judgment as what you think this is. And you can be right and wrong in that. And that's why you're never going to have a psychic that's 100% right. Not how we do it now, because there is a lot of interpretation involved. But do you have that? Do you have like a signal or a something?
You and I are just like, every time you speak, I'm like, yeah. I will, and I've literally walked into a yoga studio, my body will shake. So one time I'm like, this lady must be doing some killer yoga, because I sat down and I'd been to 100 yoga classes, and all of a sudden I'm doing this, when I went to traveling through Asia, Chiang Mai, every single time I would go into a temple, my body would sometimes quite dramatically rock. Sometimes it's so subtle that another person wouldn't see it. But I did not know, this is long before channeling, I didn't know what was going on, but I'd go, and the shaman guy was going to teach me something. And the minute he started talking, I'm like, okay, you're the real deal, because I'm moving. I could just feel it that way.
Something's happening.
Yeah. And I totally agree with, a lot of it is our interpretation. What does the blue card mean in that context? There is interpretation involved. One reason I did my channel was I was going to say, okay, I want to see how accurate I am, and I want people to see how accurate I am, so that maybe they could track me and go, oh, Dave's getting a little better, oh, well,
right.
Sometimes people would go, no, Dave, that's actually a semaphore signal, that's what sailors do, and people will email me and tell me,
right,
the vision.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting how that happens, because it's almost,
well, and Dave, you're so good, because you get us so much in metaphor. And I'm almost like amazed that you can take things apart that quickly, because you get a lot of things where it's like, oh, he's showing me this, so that means this, and it's really impressive to watch. But your guys must know that you get metaphor really quickly, and you understand that's the way you understand it.
Well, I think it's a bit like you with the movie business. We're both from Los Angeles. That's just like how the metaphors work for you. I, again, came at this via shamanism. And in shamanism, there is, you go on these journeys and spirits showing you the castle, the witch, and the dog, and you sort of put them together with your question to get your answer. So it is a lot of practice, and a degree in English literature and philosophy certainly helps, because you'll pick up these metaphors. All right. One more question I just have for you, and that is, I know, again, you and I are so similar, that you're teaching classes, and I'd love to hear about those classes.
Yeah, so I have two things going on. So one is my website, which is intuitiview.com. And there you can get beginning classes, and it starts at the very, very beginning, choosing your practice, choosing how you're going to meditate and things like that. And so it starts very, very beginning. So if you are a total beginner, that's what those classes are for. And there's 3, and then there's a follow-up to that. And then also with Debbie from Freebird Spirit, I'm doing Zoom classes. So we're just wrapping up our beginning classes, and we'll be starting our next portion, which is going to be in mediumship, in next month. So if you went to my website and took the first group of classes, you'd be ready to be in there with our intermediate classes. So if you wanted to do that and then do the Zoom classes, you could totally do that. But basically it takes you from the very beginning, how to choose kind of a way to, because you, as you know, you need a way that you tune in to spirit, and that spirit speaks to you, because they speak to us all the time, but we're the ones that tune them out, because we've got to live, right? We've got to live in this world. So we're, you know, we're very consumed with our life here, which, and they know that, so they work how they can. They get through to us somehow when we need those answers. But if you want to be able to get access when you want it, you have to kind of learn how they're communicating with you, and it's different for everybody.
Mhm.
So that's what the classes do. They kind of teach you how to figure out how are they communicating with me, and then like I said, the next group of classes we'll be doing on Zoom and those you can just email me at intuitiview@gmail.com if you're interested in either one. But intuitiview.com has all my recorded classes. They're you kind of just do it yourself. And yeah, so that's that. But that's what I like I said, I felt like I was called to kind of demystify this a little bit, and let people know that they can do this. It's not something that's just for the few, special, and that is why I call it intuitive view, because I think intuitive is a much more relatable term than psychic. I think people think I've had lots of intuitive experiences, but I've never had a psychic experience. It's very different, and it's really the same thing. But I just think the language is important sometimes, especially when people are maybe wanting to try this and thinking, I'm not psychic, So I think having it just that word, I think kind of invites people in a different way,
Mm-hmm. I just think that's just so great, because let's face it, we cannot change the world singularly tomorrow, but we can help one person at a time, and they'll go on and help another. And that's how we really, frankly, spread the light.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the butterfly effect, right? It's just affecting, as you go, and hoping those things ripple out and affect other things and other people. So yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, Kim. I swear I could talk to you all day long. I'm going to link to your intuitive view, and
Well, likewise.
yes, okay, good. And we're going to stop this video, and then I'm going to talk to Kim for another 5 hours, because I really could talk all day long. Thanks so much, Kim.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me.